Welcome in. The lamp is lit, the door is closed, and the night is finally yours. Tonight you step into one of the oldest stories human hands ever wrote down, the tale of the doomed prince, the boy born with 3 deaths waiting for him, and the long night he spends walking out to meet his fate instead of sitting still and waiting for it. If nights like this one help you loosen your grip on the day, a like or a subscribe is a kind way to say so, and it helps these stories find the people who need them. And if you would like to leave a comment before you drift, tell me the name of a far country you have always meant to travel to and what you imagine the nights are like there. For now, there is nothing to carry and nowhere you need to be. Let the pillow take the weight of your head, let the light in the room go low, and let the whole of the day slip off you like a heavy robe you no longer need to wear. You are standing in the cool of the evening on a low rise above the river, where a single white house sits alone with one small lamp lit high under its roof. The desert begins a few steps behind your heels. The green fields run down to the dark water ahead, and inside that quiet house, a king is about to be given the one son he has wanted for the whole of his life. The air here is soft and going cool. All day the sun pressed down on the mud and the reeds and the flat pale sand, and now the heat is leaving the ground the way warmth leaves a stone when you lift it out of a fire. You can feel it move past your ankles as it goes. Somewhere below you, the river turns over on itself, slow and dark and wide, and the sound of it is the sound of a hand smoothing cloth, again and again, with no end and no hurry. There is a smell of wet silt and cut green stalks, and under it, the thin, sweet smell of lamp oil burning in that one high window. A bird calls once out over the water and then thinks better of it and goes quiet. The date palms along the bank lift their long leaves and let them down again in a wind you can barely feel. The world is settling for the night. And in the house on the rise, on this evening of all evenings, a child is being born who will be loved more than any child before him, and feared for more than any child before him, and you are here to see how his story begins. The king in that house is not a young man anymore. For years and years he has wanted one thing, and it is the one thing that has never come to him. He has a throne and a country, and more than enough to eat and drink for 100 lifetimes. He has houses of stone and gardens of shade and servants who move quietly through cool rooms. He has grain in his stores and gold in his rooms and the whole of a green land answering to his name. What he does not have, what he has never had, is a son. He has asked for one in every way a man can ask. He has stood in the great halls where the gods are kept and spoken his want out loud into the dark. He has laid gifts on the cold stone and waited there until his knees ached and the lamps burned low, and then gone home to his empty rooms, and asked again the next day, and the day after that. Year after year the answer was silence, and year after year he learned to carry that silence a little more quietly, the way you learn to carry an old ache in the knee or the back. He stopped saying the want out loud. He only felt it in the evenings, when the house was still and there was no small voice anywhere in it. And then, this year, on this soft evening, the silence breaks. A child is coming. A boy. The word runs through the house like water finding the low places, and every servant hears it, and every lamp is lit, and the whole white house on the rise glows against the darkening sand. The king walks from room to room and cannot sit still. His joy is a large and clumsy thing inside him, too big to hold, and he keeps setting it down and picking it up again. After so many empty years, he has a son. He is afraid to say it out loud in case saying it breaks it. He goes to the high window where the child lies and looks at him, and looks again, and cannot quite believe that the long emptiness has ended in something so small. But there is an old custom in this land, older than the king, older than his father and his father before him. When a child is born, 7 visitors come. They come to every birth, to the poor house and the rich house alike, to the child on the reed mat and the child in the painted room. No one sees them arrive, and no one shows them the door. They stand at the foot of the new life and they look at it, and they speak aloud the shape of the years it will have. Whatever they say becomes true. This is simply the way of things, as sure as the river rising and the river falling, and no one in the land would think to argue with it. So on this evening, while the king walks the halls too glad to sit, the 7 come. They gather where the child lies new and small and wrapped against the cool. They do not knock and they are not announced. The room seems only to grow a little stiller, the lamplight to lean a little, and then they are simply there, standing over the child, the way you stand over a sleeping thing you must not wake. They look at him the long way, the way you look at a road you already know the end of. And then they speak. They do not soften it. That is not their way. They say that this boy, this longed-for son, this only child of an old king's whole heart, will die. That much they say for every child, because it is true for every child. But then they say the manner of it, and the manner is where the cold comes in. He will die, they say, by a crocodile. Or he will die by a snake. Or he will die by a dog. One of these 3 will be the end of him. They say it plainly, the 3 deaths laid side by side like 3 stones on a wall, and then, their work done, they are gone as quietly as they came, and the room is only a room again, warm and ordinary, with a child asleep in it. The words reach the king. Of course they reach him. Words like that always find the person who most cannot bear them. He is standing in a bright room full of the new happiness of the house when the news of what the 7 said is brought to him, and he feels the happiness go out of him all at once, the way the warmth went out of the ground when the sun left. His joy does not fade slowly. It goes cold in a single breath, and leaves him standing there holding nothing. A crocodile, a snake, a dog. He turns the 3 of them over in his mind, and each one is worse than the last, and each one is everywhere. The crocodile is in the river he can hear from his own roof. The snake is in the grass at the field's edge, in the cool of the stone walls, in the dark under any doorstep. And the dog. The dog walks at the heel of every traveller on every road in the whole of the land. He has spent his life among these 3 creatures without ever once thinking of them, and now he cannot stop thinking of them, and they are all around his house like a tightening ring. He goes to a window and looks out at the river he has loved his whole life, and for the first time it looks to him like a thing that is waiting. He sits down at last, because his legs will not hold the weight of it, and he thinks. He is a king, and a king is used to being able to change things. He has moved rivers of grain and armies of men. He has said a word in a bright room and watched it become a wall, a canal, a whole town of new houses. Surely, he thinks, surely there is something a man of his size can do against 3 small deaths. He has never in his life met a problem that could not be answered with enough men, enough stone, enough patience. He reaches for that certainty now, and finds it, and holds on. But he knows, even as he thinks it, that the 7 cannot be argued with. Their words are already true. He cannot unsay a crocodile, or unwind a snake, or call back a dog that has not yet come. The fate is written now, and it is not the kind of writing that can be scraped from the stone. No king has ever brought back a word the 7 have spoken, and no king ever will. He sits with that for a long, cold moment, and it is perhaps the loneliest moment of his whole long reign. The night deepens around him while he sits. The lamps burn down and are filled again by quiet hands. The sounds of the glad house grow softer and then stop as one by one the servants find their beds, until there is only the king awake, and the small breathing of the child somewhere above him, and the wind moving over the sand outside. He listens to that breathing for a long time. It is such a small sound. It is the smallest and the most precious sound in the whole of his kingdom, and every death in the world seems to be leaning toward it out of the dark. He thinks of the boy growing, walking, running, laughing, going out one bright ordinary morning into a world that has already promised to take him back. And the more he loves the thought of that life, the less he can bear to let it be lived in the open. And yet a fate has to arrive somehow. A crocodile has to reach him. A snake has to find him. A dog has to walk up to him on some ordinary day. If the deaths are fixed, the king thinks, slowly, the meeting is not. The 3 creatures are out there in the wide world, and the boy is in here, small and warm and new. What if the 2 were simply never allowed to touch? What if the whole world, with its rivers and its roads and its grass and its animals, could be kept on the far side of a wall, and the boy kept safe on this side of it for all the days of his life? It is a hard, sad, stubborn thought, and it is the thought of a man who loves too much to give up. If he cannot change what will happen, he decides, then he will change where the boy lives, and how, and among whom. He will build a wall between his son and every animal that walks or swims or slides. He will keep the whole world away. He does not yet know how, but he knows he will do it, and his mind closes around the plan the way a hand closes around a thing it will not let fall. The old king looks toward the high window where his son sleeps, small and new and already so heavily loved, and he begins, that very night, to plan the house he will build to keep him. The king does not wait long. A man who has decided to fight a thing he cannot win becomes very busy because the work is the only place to put the fear. In the mornings he calls for his builders and his measuring men, and in the evenings he cannot sleep for turning over walls and doors and roofs in his mind, and between the 2 he is almost happy, because a man with a plan does not have to feel how afraid he is. He chooses a spot far out from the town, out where the last green field gives up and the pale sand begins. It is a lonely place, quiet in the way that only the edge of the desert is quiet, where the noise of people thins away to nothing, and the only sound is the wind moving grains of sand one over another. Here the river is a bright thread far off, too far to hear. Here there are no roads worn deep by travelling feet, no reeds thick enough to hide a snake, no wet bank where a crocodile might rest in the sun. Here there is only clean open ground and clean open sky, and the king likes it for exactly the reasons another man might find it bleak. He walks the empty ground himself, more than once, and looks in every direction, and sees nothing coming, and is glad. On this spot he builds a house of stone. Not a soft house of mud and reed like the houses of the town, but a house with thick pale walls that hold the cool inside them through the worst of the day. He builds it high, and he builds it strong. He gives it a flat roof where a person can stand in the evening and take the air. He fills it with every good and gentle thing a life could want. There are soft beds and thick woven mats. There are painted rooms where bluebirds sit forever in painted reeds. There are cool jars of water and cool jars of beer, and bread every morning, and honey and sweet fruit brought out from the town by trusted hands. Whatever a child could want, the king puts inside those walls before the child is even old enough to want it, so that there will never be a single reason to look outside. And into this house, while he is still small enough to be carried, the king brings his son. From that day the boy grows up inside those walls, and the walls are the whole of his world. He is given everything a child could ask for except the one thing he does not yet know to ask for, which is the world outside. He never stands at the river. He never feels the cold water pull at his ankles or watches the slow, dark shapes that live in it. He never walks a road. He never meets a traveler coming the other way with dust on his feet and a story from somewhere else. He never sees a snake pour itself through the grass, because there is no grass, and there are no snakes, and the men who keep the house have made very sure of it. And he never, in all his growing years, meets a dog. The servants love him in their careful way. They are kind to him because he is easy to be kind to, a gentle boy with quiet eyes who was born already loved. They bring him his bread warm and his water cool. They teach him his letters and his numbers and the old stories of the land. But they watch him too. They watch the doors and they watch the walls and they watch the ground for anything that walks or slides. Nothing living comes into that house that the king has not allowed. A servant who finds so much as a beetle on the threshold sweeps it away before the boy can see it. The boy grows up clean and safe and soft-handed, and he grows up alone, and he does not fully know that he is alone, because he has never had anything to measure it against. The days inside the house are gentle, and they are all the same. The light comes in pale through the high windows in the morning, and goes gold in the afternoon, and leaves again at night. The boy eats and learns and sleeps. He plays the small, quiet games a child alone learns to play, moving stones across a board, following the shadow of a window as it crawls slowly across a painted floor through the length of a long afternoon. He is not unhappy. You cannot miss a thing you have never held. But there is a stillness in him that grows as he grows, a kind of listening, as though some part of him knows the walls are not the edge of everything and is waiting to be shown what lies past them. He comes to know every sound the house can make. He knows the small tick of the beams as the cool of the night gives way to the warmth of the morning. He knows the soft slap of the servant's feet on the stone, and which set of feet belongs to which quiet, kind face. He knows the low, steady note the wind makes when it comes across the open sand and finds the corner of the high wall, a sound like someone humming far off with their mouth closed. In the deep of the afternoon, when the heat presses down and the whole house sleeps, he lies on the cool floor of a painted room and listens to that one long note and lets it carry him halfway to sleep. It is his favorite hour and his loneliest, both at once, and he could not have told you where the one ended and the other began. What he has is the roof. As he gets older, he begins to climb up to the flat roof in the evenings, when the day's heat lifts off the stone and the sky goes from white to gold to a deep and endless blue. From up there he can see the whole world he is not allowed to touch. He can see the green fields far off, and the bright thread of the river, and the little moving specks that are people going about their lives. He can see birds cross the sky in long straight lines. He can see the sun let go of the land in the west, and the first stars come out over the sand. He learns the shapes of the far hills and the way the light changes on them, and he comes to know that distant country better than he knows the rooms he sleeps in, though he has never set one foot upon it. He watches it all the way you watch a fire. He cannot get to it, and he cannot change it, and he cannot look away from it. It is beautiful, and it is warm, and it is completely out of reach, and something in him leans toward it every single evening without his ever deciding to. He does not have a word yet for what he feels up there on the roof. He is a boy who has been given everything, and who stands each night at the edge of his stone world, looking out at a wide and living country he has never once been allowed to enter, and the looking is slowly becoming the largest thing in him. Below him the house is warm and safe. Above him the sky is huge. And out at the far edge of what he can see, the world goes on being the world, without him, and waits. It happens on an evening like all the others, and that is the strange thing about it. Nothing marks the day out. The heat lifts off the stone the way it always does. The light goes gold the way it always does. The boy climbs to the roof the way he always does, and leans on the low wall at its edge, and lets his eyes go out across the fields toward the river to watch the world put itself to bed. He is older now, long-limbed and quiet, no longer quite a child, and the evenings on the roof have become the truest hour of his day. And then he sees a man on the road. The road is far below, and far off, a pale line drawn across the green, and the man on it is small with distance, no taller than a grain of barley held at arm's length. He is walking the way travellers walk at the end of a day, steady and tired, heading for wherever he means to sleep. There is nothing unusual about him. The boy has seen 100 such men from up here, small and far and going somewhere, and he has watched them the way he watches everything on the far side of the walls, with a quiet ache and no hope of ever reaching them. But this man is not alone. Beside him, close in at his heel, there is a second small shape. It is low to the ground, and it has 4 feet, and it moves the way the man moves, at the same pace, in the same direction, as if the two of them are joined by something the boy cannot see. When the man slows, the small shape slows. When the man goes on, the small shape goes on with him. It stays at his heel the whole length of the road, patient and easy, like it has walked there its whole life and means to walk there still. Once the man stops to shift the load on his back, and the small shape stops too, and waits, and looks up at him, and the boy on the roof feels his own breath catch without knowing why. The boy has never seen anything like it. He has seen birds, high and free, and belonging to no one. He has seen the far-off shapes of cattle standing in the fields. But he has never seen a living thing choose to walk beside a person like that, matched to him, close as a shadow but warmer than a shadow, going where he goes for no reason the boy can name. He leans further over the low wall to keep the two shapes in sight for as long as the failing light will let him, and he feels a small ache open in his chest that he does not understand. He wants, suddenly and very much, to know what the small shape is. When one of the servants comes up to the roof to bring him in for the night, the boy points out across the darkening fields to where the man and the small shape are nearly gone into the dusk. He asks what it is that walks so close at the traveller's heel. The servant looks and is quiet for a moment, and then answers gently, the way you answer a question you would rather not have been asked. "It is a dog," the servant says. "That animal is a dog." And then, having said it, the servant grows a little careful and moves the boy toward the stairs, and does not offer another word about it. The word lands softly and goes deep. The boy does not know, standing there on the warm stone, that a dog is one of the 3 deaths spoken over him at his birth. No one has ever told him about the 7, or the crocodile, or the snake, or the dog. He only knows that he has just watched a creature walk faithfully beside a man all down the length of a road, close and warm and never once leaving his side, and that he has spent his whole life inside these walls with no one to walk beside him like that at all. And now the thing has a name. A dog. He cannot stop thinking about it. That night, and the next, and the nights after, the small 4-footed shape walks through his mind at the traveller's heel. He climbs to the roof each evening now, not to watch the whole wide world, but to watch the roads, hoping to see another one, and sometimes he does, far off and going somewhere, a low shape trotting easy beside a walking man. Each time he sees one, his chest tightens in the same sweet, sore way, and he stays on the roof long after the shapes are gone, watching the empty road as if it might give him one more. At night he lies awake and builds the creature in his mind. He gives it a size and a color and a way of moving. He imagines it lying warm against his feet while he sleeps, and rising when he rises, and following him from room to room through the long unchanging days, so that he would never again walk the length of the house with no one behind him. He imagines talking to it in the low voice you use for a thing that will not answer, and having it look up at him the way the shape on the road looked up at its man. The wanting of it becomes a kind of ache he carries everywhere, gentle and constant, and he understands at last, without being able to name it, that what he is missing is not a dog at all, but the simple fact of being walked beside. He begins to want one. Not 100, not a great pack, just one. One creature that would walk beside him the way that one walked beside the man on the road. One warm shape to keep at his own heel inside these cool stone rooms, so that when he climbed to the roof in the evening, he would not climb up quite so alone. At last he asks his father for it. He asks the way a lonely child asks, without any idea of the weight the question carries, only knowing that the want in him has grown too large to keep quiet. He tells his father about the man on the road and the shape at his heel and the word the servant gave him, and he asks, plainly, for a dog of his own. Just one. Just something to be near him. He does not plead. He only says it, and then looks at his father with the whole of his loneliness plain in his face. And the king, hearing it, feels the old cold move in him again. A dog. Of the 3 deaths, here is one of them, asked for in his own son's gentle voice, wanted with his son's whole lonely heart. Everything careful in the king says no. The walls he built, the empty roads, the guarded doors, all of it was built against this exact word, and now the word has come from the last place he could have armed himself against, from the mouth of the boy he built the walls to save. but he looks at the boy. He sees the years the boy has spent inside the stone, safe and soft and alone, kept from every living thing for love of him. He sees how small the asking is, and how large the loneliness behind it must be, to make a boy ask for so little with so much feeling. He remembers all the evenings he has watched his son climb to the roof and stand there alone against the darkening sky, and how he has told himself the boy was safe and been unable to tell himself the boy was happy. And the king, who has never once been able to refuse this child anything, finds that he cannot refuse him this either. He tells himself a quiet story to make it bearable. One dog, he thinks, is a very small danger. A single creature, raised inside the house, watched and known, and never let to run wild, is not the same as the fate that walks the open roads. Surely one dog, one gentle companion kept close under his own eye, cannot be the thing the 7 meant. Surely he can allow his son this one warm shape at his heel and still keep him safe from all the rest. It is the kind of thing a man tells himself when love has already decided and only the reasons are still catching up. So the king says yes. A dog is brought into the house of stone, small and warm and 4-footed, and given to the boy who has wanted nothing else. And the boy, holding it, is happier than the high walls have ever seen him. He does not know what he is holding. He only knows that at last, after all the lonely evenings on the roof, something living has come to walk beside him and means to stay. That night he climbs to the roof as he always does, and for the first time in his life he does not climb alone, and the small warm shape settles against his feet while the stars come out over the sand. The years go by inside the house of stone, and they go by softly, and the boy becomes a young man without any single day being the one that changed him. There is no gate he passes through from childhood into being grown. There is only the slow work of the sun coming and going through the high windows, over and over, until one evening the servants look at him and see that the child they carried in is not there anymore, and a tall, quiet man stands in his place with the same gentle eyes he has always had. The dog grows up beside him. It is not small and warm and clumsy the way it was on the night it first settled against his feet on the roof. It is a long, easy, deep-chested animal now, with a way of lying down that takes up half a doorway, and it goes everywhere the young man goes. It walks at his heel through the cool, painted rooms in the morning. It lies across his feet in the heavy hush of the afternoon. It climbs the stairs to the roof with him in the evening and stands beside him at the low wall while he looks out at the world, and when he speaks to it in the low voice you use for a thing that will not answer, it turns its head and looks up at him as though it has understood every word. For years now he has not once walked the length of the house alone. The wanting that used to ache in him on the roof is quiet at last, because the thing he wanted lies warm against his side every hour of the day. He is happy in the smooth and unquestioning way of a man who has never been given a reason not to be. But he is also a man now, and a man's mind goes places a child's does not. He begins to notice the shape of his own life, the way you notice, all at once, a sound that has been going on for hours. He notices that he has never left. He notices that the doors of the house, for all their thickness and all their careful locks, are doors he has simply never had a reason to walk through, and that no one has ever quite explained why. He notices the way the servants' eyes move to the walls and the ground when a bird lands too close, and the way a certain stillness comes over the house at any small living thing that finds its way in. He is gentle, but he is not a fool, and the questions gather in him slowly, the way water gathers behind a low bank, until at last it finds the top of it. And then, one day, he learns the truth. It comes to him quietly, the way most true things do. Perhaps a servant grown old and careless lets it slip. Perhaps he simply asks the right question of the right person on the right tired evening, and is answered at last. However it reaches him, he learns what was spoken over his cradle on the night he was born. He learns about the 7 who come at every birth, and how they stood over him small and new, and how they said the shape of his years aloud. He learns that a death was laid on him 3 ways: a crocodile, or a snake, or a dog. He learns that this is why the house was built out on the empty edge of the sand, and why the walls are so thick, and why he has never in his life stood at the river or walked a road. He learns that the whole of his gentle, guarded, unchanging life has been one long attempt to keep 3 creatures from ever finding him. He does not cry out. That is not his way, and it has never been his way. He takes the knowledge and he turns it over quietly, the way a man turns a stone in his hand to see all its sides. He looks down at the dog lying warm and easy across his feet, the oldest friend he has, the gentlest thing in his whole small world, and he understands that this too is one of the 3 named deaths, and has been the whole time, and that his father let it in anyway because he could not bear to see his son alone. Something in him aches for the old king when he understands that. It is a hard thing to be loved that much and that fearfully. It is a hard thing to know that every soft comfort of your life was really a wall, and that the wall was raised in love, and that love built you a beautiful place to be kept. He sits with it for many days. He climbs to the roof in the evenings, as he always has, and now he looks out at the wide, living country with new eyes. Out there are the 3 deaths that are meant for him. But out there, too, is everything else. The roads he has watched all his life go somewhere, and he has never once gone with them. The river turns over and over in the distance, and he has never felt it pull at his ankles. The far hills change color at dusk, and he has never stood on one and looked back. He is a young man with 3 deaths waiting for him, and he has spent the only life he will ever have hiding from them inside 4 walls, and he begins to understand that hiding is its own kind of dying, slower and quieter, but a way of not living all the same. The thought grows in him gently, the way everything grows in that house, and one evening it is simply finished, and he knows what he wants. He does not want to be kept any more. If a fate is coming for him, he would rather walk out under the open sky and meet it on his own 2 feet than sit still in a painted room and wait for it to come in under the door. He would rather have a short life that is truly his than a long one lived behind a wall. He is not angry when he decides this. He is calm, the way you are calm when a thing you have circled for a long time is finally clear. The deaths will find him or they will not. But he will not spend his one life being guarded against the world like a lamp kept out of the wind. So he goes to his father and he tells him plainly, without heat, that he knows now what was said at his birth, and that he is grateful, truly grateful, for the walls and the years and all the careful love that built them. And then he tells him that he cannot stay inside them any longer. He would rather go out and live whatever days are his to live, under the sky, on the roads, in the wide world, than sit safe and still and slowly disappear. He asks his father to let him go. The king hears it, and the old cold moves in him one more time, deeper than it ever has. Everything in him wants to say no. Everything in him wants to add another wall, another door, another year of keeping. He has spent his whole reign learning to move rivers and armies with a word, and here is the one thing he cannot move, standing in front of him with his own gentle eyes, asking to be let out into the very danger he built a house to keep away. He looks at his son, and he sees the small child he carried in, and he sees the tall, calm man that child has become, and he understands, with a grief that has no bottom to it, that the man is right, and that a life kept is not a life given. And so the king, who has never once been able to refuse this child anything, cannot refuse him this last and largest thing either. He grieves, but under the grief there is something else, something almost like pride, because the boy he raised behind walls has grown into a man brave enough to walk out from behind them with his eyes open. He gives his blessing. And then, because if the boy must go, he will not go empty, the king gives him more. He gives him a chariot to carry him, and horses to draw it. He gives him weapons for the road, for a man alone should not go unarmed into country he does not know. And he gives him the dog, of course the dog, because the two of them have not been parted in years, and the king has long since stopped pretending that one gentle animal is the thing he ought to fear. Then the old king walks with his son to the great door of the house of stone, the door he built to stay shut for a lifetime, and with his own hands he opens it and lets his son walk out through it into the evening and the wide world and whatever waits. The young man goes out through the door and does not look back for a long time, because if he looks back he is afraid he will not be able to keep walking. The chariot wheels turn under him, the horses lean into their work, the dog runs easy alongside, and the house of stone falls away behind them across the pale ground until it is only a small square shape against the sand, and then only a mark, and then nothing at all. Ahead of him the open country spreads out huge and unguarded, and for the first time in his life there is no wall between him and the edge of the world. Everything is new, and the newness of it is almost too much to hold. The road under the wheels is a real road, worn deep by the feet of people he has only ever watched from a roof, and now he is one of the small moving shapes upon it, going somewhere, part of the wide traffic of the living land, at last. He passes green fields with people bent in them. He passes the river up close enough to hear it and smell the wet silt of it, the sound he knew from far off now filling his whole ear. He passes travellers on the road who lift a hand to him, and he lifts a hand back, and the simple, ordinary fact of it moves him more than he can say. He has watched the world his whole life. Now he is walking through the middle of it, and it does not push him out. He turns north, and then east, out toward the far edges of the only country he has ever known. He has no plan finer than that. He knows the names of a few far lands, the way a boy on a roof knows the names of hills he will never climb, only as sounds, only as places the roads run off toward. He picks one of those directions and he follows it, day after day, letting the road carry him further from the house of stone than he has ever been, further than anyone in the house ever imagined he would go. The land changes slowly around him as he goes. The fields thin. The river bends away. The hills he knew from the roof pass behind him, and new hills rise ahead, hills he has no names for at all, and the young man rides out toward them with the dog at his side and his father's weapons in the chariot, and the whole unknown world opening in front of him like a door that has no far edge. There comes a day when he understands that he has left his own land behind him entirely. There is no line drawn on the ground to mark it, no wall, no gate. There is only a slow change in everything, until he looks around one afternoon and sees that the very shape of the country has become strange to him. The houses are built in ways he does not know. The trees are trees he cannot name. The people who pass him speak among themselves in sounds he cannot follow, and the food they sell at the roadside smells of spices he has never tasted. He is a stranger now, truly, in a way he has never been a stranger before, and he finds that it does not frighten him. He rides on quietly through the strangeness, taking it in, and the strangeness takes him in too, and lets him pass. At night he stops wherever the day leaves him. He makes a small camp at the side of the road, a little fire, a place to lie down, and he sleeps under the open sky for the first nights of his whole life. That sky is a wonder to him and a strangeness both. He has watched the stars come out over the sand every evening of his life from the flat roof of the house, and he knows their shapes the way he knows the sounds of the house. But out here, so far from home, the stars are not quite where they should be. The ones he trusted sit lower than they ought to, or slide off below the dark line of the land where at home they would still be riding high. New stars he has never seen lift up out of the strange horizon. It is a small thing and a large thing. He lies on his back by the low fire and looks up at a sky that is almost his and not quite, and he understands with a quiet turn of the heart just how far he has come. He is not alone though, and that is what makes the strange skies bearable. The dog lies down with him every night, curled warm against his back the way it curled against his feet on the roof when they were both young, and its steady breathing is the one familiar thing in all that wide new dark. The fire burns low. The strange stars wheel slowly overhead. And the young man sleeps, warm on one side from the animal that has walked beside him since he was a lonely boy, and he is more at peace on the hard ground under the wrong stars than he ever was in the soft bed behind the thick walls, because here, at last, the life he is living is his own. He is careful, on the road, about who he says he is. He is a king's son, but a king's son traveling alone through country he does not know is a valuable and a fragile thing, and some part of him understands this without being taught it. So he does not tell people the truth. When he stops among strangers, when they share their fire or their bread, and ask him, in the friendly way of the road, who he is and where he is bound, he gives out a smaller story than the true one. He tells them he is the son of a soldier, a plain man's son, out on his own, making his way. It is close enough to true to sit easy on his tongue, for a soldier's son and a king's son both grow up around weapons and horses, and it draws no dangerous eyes. He carries his real name quietly, folded up small and kept close, and shows the world only the plain one, and so he travels safe and unremarked through lands where no one has ever heard of the house of stone, or the child who was kept in it. There is a freedom in the smaller name that he had not expected. At home he was the only son of an old king, the whole of a country's hope, watched every hour and guarded every day. Out here he is only a soldier's son on the road, and no one waits on him, and no one fears for him, and no one keeps a single door shut against him. He carries his own bread and mends his own gear and speaks to whomever he pleases, and the days answer to him and to no one else. He had thought he would miss the soft rooms and the cool water and the servants who knew his name. Instead, he finds that he does not miss them at all. The hard ground and the plain name and the open road have given him something the house of stone never could, which is the simple ownership of his own hours, and he would not trade it back for all the comfort behind the walls. The days become many. He loses the count of them, and does not mind. He wakes with the light, he travels while the sun climbs and crosses and falls, he stops when the day is done, and he sleeps under the turning strange stars with the dog at his back, and then he does it all again. The road feeds him to one country and then the next. He grows lean and brown and easy in himself, a young man of the roads now, with the dust of far places on his feet, and the deep quiet of the stone house still living somewhere underneath. And then, after many such days, the road brings him at last to a country ruled by a great chief, a wide green land with a town at its heart, and the young man draws his tired horses to a halt in the dust at the edge of that town, and stops, and looks, and does not yet know that here his story is about to turn. The town of the great chief is the largest gathering of people the young man has ever stood among, and after so many quiet nights on the empty road, it comes at him all at once, a great warm noise of voices and animals and life. He leaves the chariot and the tired horses at the edge of it, and goes in on foot with the dog at his heel, and he lets the crowd carry him, looking at everything, saying little, a dusty traveller among many, no one, anyone, would think to look at twice. The great chief who rules that country has one child, and that child is a daughter. She is his only one, and he holds her the way an old man holds a single lamp on a dark night, close and careful and half afraid of the dark that would come if it went out. He keeps her in a house within his house, in a high room lifted far above the ground, and that room has one window, a single opening in the wall so high above the earth that no ladder in the country reaches it, and no man standing below could hope to touch it. From that one high window the daughter can look out over the whole of the town and the green land beyond, and the whole of the town can look up and see the small, far shape of her at the sill, but the distance between the window and the ground is a distance no one has yet been able to cross. Her days are spent up in that high room, above the town, above the noise, with the one window for company. From it she can watch the whole of the country go about its living. She can see the market fill in the morning and empty at dusk. She can see the dust rise off the roads, and the birds cross the green land, and the light change on the far hills through the long, slow afternoons. She has watched all of it for years, the way another young person might watch a fire, close enough to feel its warmth and never close enough to touch it. She knows the world only from above and from a distance, the way it can be seen and not the way it can be held, and something in her has grown quiet and watchful and a little tired of waiting, up there in the one bright room that everyone can see and no one can reach. The chief has made a strange promise about that window, and the whole country knows it. He has sworn that he will give his daughter, his only child, the lamp of his old age, to any young man who can leap up from the bare earth and take hold of the high sill of her window with his own 2 hands. Not climb to it. Not reach it with any ladder or rope or trick. Leap to it from a standing start on the ground and catch the sill and hold on. The man who can do that impossible thing will have her, and with her one day the whole of the chief's green country. Any man who cannot, and none yet has, goes home the way he came. It has become a kind of daily gathering, this trying, almost a thing the town comes out to watch the way people come out to watch any game they know the ending of. The failing is expected now. The men climb and fall and the crowd sighs and no one is truly surprised, because no one has ever reached the sill and a part of the country has quietly decided that no one ever will. And yet they keep coming day after day because the prize is what it is, and because young men will always throw themselves at an impossible height while there is a chance, however small, that they might be the one the wall lets up. So every day the young men come to try. The sons of the country's lords, the strong ones, the proud ones, the ones raised on good meat with fine limbs and high hopes, they gather in the open ground below the window, and they take their turns. Day after day the young man from Egypt, newly come and unknown, watches them do it. One by one they measure the wall with their eyes. One by one they back away to take a run at it. One by one they come pounding across the bare earth and gather themselves and throw their whole bodies up at the high sill, reaching, straining, fingers spread. And one by one they fall short. The sill is simply too high. The best of them brush the wall a man's height below it and drop back down into the dust, and pick themselves up, and try again, and fall again, until the light goes and they go home sore and empty, to come back and fall again tomorrow. Each day the young men run and jump and fall, and each day, when the dust settles and the last of them has gone, the one high window stays exactly as it was, open and bright and empty, with the small, far shape of the daughter still at the sill, still waiting, still unreached. The young man from the house of stone stands among the watching crowd and takes it all in quietly. He is tired from the long road, lean and dusty, the salt of many days' travel still on him, and he has come to the town with no thought of windows or daughters or promises, only to rest and to eat, and to see what there is to see. He leans on nothing, asks for nothing, says nothing. The dog sits at his heel and leans warm against his leg. He watches the Lord's sons hurl themselves at the wall and fall back, and he watches the far bright window ride high above them all, out of the reach of every leaping man, and something in him, some old thing born on a rooftop long ago, begins to wake. He watches for a long time, through the heat of the day and into the softening of the afternoon. He watches the strong men come and go, and the dust rise and settle. He watches the small, far shape at the sill, the daughter, who stands and looks down at each one who tries and each one who fails, patient and quiet and far away, the way he himself once stood at the low wall of a roof and looked out at a world he could not reach. And slowly, without deciding to, he stops seeing a game and starts seeing something else. He sees two people kept apart by a distance no one can seem to cross. He sees a light in a high place and a hard ground below it. He sees a longing on both sides of the same empty air, and he feels the old ache in his own chest answer it, the ache he carried for years on the roof of the house of stone. For he knows that window. Not this window, not this wall, not this far country he had never heard named a season ago. But he knows what it is to stand at the bottom of something high and bright and long for the thing kept up inside it. He spent his whole boyhood at the low wall of a roof, looking out at a living world lifted forever out of his reach, wanting it with his whole quiet heart, and never once being allowed to cross to it. He knows exactly what it is to be the one on the ground, looking up. And now here is a high window with a waiting light inside it, and a hard bare space of earth below, and a crowd of strong men who cannot cross the distance, and the young man feels his eyes climb the wall the way they used to climb the evening sky, up and up, past the reach of all the leaping lords, to the small warm light burning high in the one window nobody can reach. He does not move yet. He only looks. But he is looking now the way a man looks at a thing he has decided, somewhere underneath, that he is going to try. The young men see him at last, the dusty stranger standing quiet at the edge of their crowd, and they decide, in the easy, careless way of strong men who have nothing to lose, that he should have his turn. It is a small joke to them, a bit of sport to break the heat of the afternoon. Here is a traveller with the dirt of the road still on his feet, and no name anyone has heard, worn thin and brown by too many days of walking, and they wave him forward with grins on their faces and open a lane for him through the middle of the crowd. "Let the stranger try," they say to one another. "Let him run at the wall the way the rest of us have. He will fall like all of us fall, and it will be a small kindness to let him find that out for himself." He comes forward slowly. The crowd draws back on either side to make him room, and he walks out into the open ground below the window with the dog padding at his heel, and he stops there in the bare space where all the Lord's sons have stopped before him, and he looks up. The window is very high. From down here it is higher than it looked from the edge of the crowd, a small, bright opening in a great blank wall, with the last of the afternoon light lying warm on the stone around it. The sill is a long way up. He measures it with his eyes the way he has watched every other man measure it, and he feels the height of it settle into him, honest and plain, the way a true thing settles. It is too high. Everyone knows it is too high. That is the whole of the game. He stands there a while longer, taking the measure of it, and behind him the crowd grows restless, waiting for their little bit of sport. But the young man is in no hurry. He has learned on the long road that a thing worth doing is worth setting your whole self behind, quietly and without haste, before ever you move. He breathes. He lets the noise of the town fall away from him. He feels the good ground under his feet and the strength the open country has put into his legs over all those days of walking, and far above him the one bright window waits, and he keeps his eyes on it and lets everything else go still. But he has spent his life looking up at high places. He knows this exact feeling in his chest, this old ache of wanting a thing lifted out of reach, better than he knows almost anything. He stood at the low wall of a roof for the whole of his boyhood and looked out at a world he was never allowed to touch, and he wanted it, and he could not have it. And he learned every corner of that wanting until it was the truest thing in him. And now the wanting is here again, up at the top of a strange wall in a far country, burning quiet in a high window, and something in him that has been folded up small for a long time begins, slowly, to open. The dog sits down in the dust at the edge of the open ground and watches him with its ears forward. It has walked beside him through every country between the house of stone and this far green land, and it knows the set of his shoulders, and it knows that something in him has changed in the last little while, gone quiet and gathered the way it gathers before a hard thing. Around the open ground the crowd waits, loose and grinning, sure of the fall. High above them all, the daughter stands at her window and looks down, and she has looked down on so many young men measuring this same wall that she hardly sees them anymore, and her eyes rest on the dusty stranger below, with no more hope in them than she has spent on any of the others. She has grown tired of hoping. She does not know yet that this is the last afternoon she will ever spend tired of hoping. He steps back to take his run. The crowd goes easy and loud around him, expecting the fall, ready to laugh the kind laugh they laughed at all the others. He does not hear them. He has gone somewhere very still inside himself, the still place he found on the road under the strange stars, the place that is only his. He looks up at the window one more time. He fixes the sill in his eye, the one high line of stone he means to hold. He does not think about the 3 deaths that wait for him out in the world. He does not think about the house of stone or the Father who opened its door. He thinks about nothing at all but the sill and the space between it and his 2 hands, and then he leans forward and he runs. He runs across the bare ground faster than any of them ran, low and hard and silent, and at the foot of the wall he gathers the whole of himself, every day of the long road, every year of the quiet longing, every bit of the strength the open country put into his legs, and he throws it all upward at once. He leaves the earth. For one long breath he is in the air with nothing under him, rising, reaching, his whole body stretched toward the one bright line of the sill, and the crowd's laughter dies in their throats all at once, because they can all suddenly see, that this one is going to be different. And his 2 hands come down out of the air and close on the high stone sill and hold. The whole town goes silent below him. He hangs there against the great wall with the last light on him and his fingers locked on the sill, high above every man who tried and fell, and for a moment nobody makes a single sound. The dog stands still on the ground far below with its head lifted. The Lord's sons stare up with their mouths open. The daughter, who has watched from her high window 100 young men run and jump and drop away, who has grown quiet and tired of watching, looks down over the sill and sees a stranger's 2 hands gripping the stone a hand's breadth from her own, and then his face rising up level with hers, brown and lean and steady, and his eyes finding her eyes. For a long moment, neither of them moves. He hangs there with the whole weight of himself on his 2 aching hands and the strange far country spread out small below his feet, and she leans at the sill a hand's breadth from him with the last warm light on her face. And they look at each other the way 2 people look who have each spent a long time alone behind a high place, wanting the world. He is out of breath and he cannot speak. He does not need to. Everything he might say is already plain in his face, and everything she might answer is already plain in hers, and the air between them at the top of that impossible wall is suddenly full of a thing that has no words and needs none. She does not hesitate. She reaches out and takes his face between her 2 hands, there at the window, high above the staring town, and she looks at him the way a person looks at the one thing they have waited a long time to see. She tells him that she will have him. She tells him that she will have him and no other man alive, not one of the Lord's sons, not any match her father might dream of, no one in the whole of the green country but this dusty stranger who came out of nowhere and did the one thing that could not be done. She says it plainly, and she says it once, and once is enough, because she means every word of it down to the ground. He lets himself down from the sill then, slow and careful, and drops the last of the way to the ground, and his legs nearly fold under him when he lands, for he is bone-tired, and the leap took everything he had. The dog is there at once, pressing warm against his side, and he puts a hand down into its fur to steady himself. All around him the crowd has changed. The grins are gone. The Lord's sons who waved him forward for a joke stand staring now, and no one laughs, and no one seems to know quite what to say to a stranger who has just done the thing they had all long ago decided could not be done. And the word of it runs down through the great house like water finding its way. It goes from the daughter's high room down the stairs and along the passages, from a servant who saw it to a servant who did not, from mouth to astonished mouth, and it grows no smaller as it goes. A stranger has reached the window. A stranger has done it. After all the Lord's sons and all the failing, after all the days the town came out to watch men fall, a traveller with no name has leapt up from the bare earth and taken hold of the high sill with his 2 hands, and the daughter has said she will have him. The whole house fills with the low, urgent buzz of it, and quick feet go looking for the one man who must be told before any other, and someone is sent, hurrying, to bring the news to the great chief himself. The chief hears the news standing in his own hall, and it does not gladden him. He has ruled this green country a long time, and he is used to the shape of the world bending to his word, and this news does not bend the way he wants it. A stranger, a traveller off the roads with the dust of far places on him, and no lineage anyone can name, no father the chief has heard of, no house, no land, nothing but a strong pair of legs and a lucky leap. That is the man who has reached his daughter's window. That is the man his only child, the lamp of his old age, has said she will have, and no other. He had made the promise thinking it safe. He had made it certain no man could keep it. And now a nameless wanderer has walked in out of nowhere and kept it, and the chief feels the anger rise in him, hot and old, the anger of a man who has been outdone by something he cannot control. He does not want to give her. Everything in him refuses it. He had pictured, if he ever pictured this day at all, some fine son of a neighbouring lord, some young man with land behind him and a name he knew, not this. He calls the stranger nothing at first. He will not send for him. He tells his people that the promise was a promise about a window and not about a daughter, that a leap is only a leap, that no child of his will be given to a man who came from the dust and will go back to it. He offers other matches instead. He names the sons of his lords, the strong proud ones, the ones with good meat on them and good land under them, and he brings their names to his daughter one after another the way a merchant lays out his best goods, and he waits for her to be sensible, and to choose one, and to let the stranger drift back onto the roads he came from. But the daughter will not have them. She will not have any of them. She turns her face away from every name her father brings her, and when he presses her, she gives him the same answer she gave at the window, that she will have the stranger and no other man alive, and she says it to her father as plainly as she said it to the man himself. And then she stops eating. She sits in her high room above the town and she refuses the food they bring her, meal after meal, day after day, quiet and unmoved, wasting slowly in the one bright window while her father storms and pleads below. She does not shout. She does not weep where he can see. She simply will not eat, and will not choose another, and will not be moved, and there is a strength in that stillness that all the chief's anger cannot push against, because you cannot command a person to be hungry, and you cannot order a heart to want what it does not want. The days of her refusing go hard on the old chief. He walks his own halls and cannot settle. He is a man who has spent his whole life being obeyed, and here in his own house is the one heart in the world he cannot rule, growing thinner and quieter in its high room while he storms and pleads below, and there is nothing in all his power that can reach it. He sends the finest food up to her, and it comes back down untouched. He sends the finest young men of his country up to be looked at, and she turns her face to the wall. He begins to understand, slowly and against his own will, that he has bound himself with his own promise, that the leap was made and the word was given, and that a chief who breaks his own sworn word before his whole country is no longer quite a chief. And under all of it, deeper than the anger and the wounded pride, there is the plain old love of a father for his only child, and the plain old fear of losing her, and in the end it is that, and not the promise, that moves him. The chief holds out as long as he can bear to, and then he cannot bear to any longer. He is an old man, and she is his only child, and the lamp of his years, and he finds, when it comes to it, that he would rather have a living daughter married to a nameless stranger than a daughter who fades away in a high room refusing his every gift. So at the last he gives way. He sends for the stranger. He has the dusty traveller brought up into his hall, and he looks at him a long moment, this lean brown young man who leapt his impossible wall, and whatever he sees in that steady, quiet face is enough, because the anger goes out of him by slow degrees, and something like acceptance comes into its place. He welcomes the young man. He gives him his daughter. He marries them under his own roof, with the whole astonished town looking on, and he gives the two of them a house of their own in the green country, a good house with land around it, and settles them there as his own children. The house they are given is a good one, low and cool, with thick walls to hold off the heat of the day, and a flat roof to catch the evening air, and land around it green with the water of that far country. There are fig trees near the door, and the smell of turned earth after the men have watered the fields, and at dusk the sound of birds coming down into the branches to settle for the night. It is the kind of house a man could live a whole, quiet life in and count himself lucky. The young man walks its rooms in the first days like someone learning a thing almost too good to trust, running his hand along the cool walls, standing in his own doorway, looking out at his own land, and it is his, all of it, given freely, kept from him by no one at all. And so the young man who was kept behind walls his whole life, who slept under strange stars on the hard ground with only a dog for company, comes to rest at last in a house of his own in a far kind country, with a wife who chose him over every lord's son alive, and land under his feet that no one will keep him from, and the wide living world all around him free to walk in. He is happy in a way he has never been happy, the deep settled happiness of a man who fought for his own life and won it. But he carries something still, folded up small and close the way he carried his true name on the roads, and one night, in the quiet dark of their own room, with the house still around them and the country asleep outside, he tells his wife the thing he has never told anyone. He tells her the truth. He tells her about the 7 who came at his birth and stood over his cradle and spoke the shape of his years aloud, and how they said a death was laid on him 3 ways, by a crocodile, or by a snake, or by a dog. He tells her that this is why he was kept behind walls, and why he left them, and that the 3 fates are somewhere out in the world still, waiting for their hour. And his wife lies beside him in the dark and listens to every word, and does not flinch, and takes the whole weight of it into herself quietly, and begins, before he has even finished, to think. She does not weep, and she does not despair. That is not the woman she is. She lies still beside him in the dark and lets the truth settle into her, all 3 shapes of it, the crocodile and the snake and the dog, and while he drifts at last towards sleep beside her, she is wide awake and turning the thing over, and by the time his breathing has gone slow, and even she has already decided. She will not sit and wait for these fates the way his father sat and waited, building walls and hoping. she will meet them. If 3 deaths are coming for the man she chose, then she will stand between him and every one of them for as long as she has breath, and the first of them, whichever comes first, will not have him while she is awake to stop it. So she begins to keep watch. Every night, when the house has gone quiet and the lamps are low, she does a small, careful thing before she lets herself lie down. She sets out bowls on the floor beside the bed, low down near the ground where the small dangers of the world move. Into them she pours beer and sweet wine, the sweetest they have, the kind whose smell fills a room, and she sets the bowls where anything creeping in along the floor in the dark would come upon them first, before ever it reached the bed. And then she lies down beside her husband, and she does not sleep. She keeps her eyes open in the dark. She listens to the small sounds of the house settling and the country breathing outside, and she watches the floor, and she waits, night after night after night, a quiet woman keeping the longest watch of her life over a sleeping man who does not know she keeps it. He sleeps easy in the safety of that watch without ever learning it is there. His days are good and full and free, the days of a man in his own house in a kind country with the whole living world open to him at last, and his nights are deep and untroubled, and he does not see the bowls set out low beside the bed, and he does not know that every night while he sleeps his wife lies awake beside him with her eyes on the dark floor, holding the door of the world shut against whatever might come creeping through it. She keeps it from him on purpose. There is no reason to lay the weight of the waiting on him too. So she carries it alone, silent and steady, and lets him have his untroubled sleep, and every morning she rises tired and says nothing, and every night she fills the bowls again and takes up her watch again, and the days go by, and nothing comes. The waiting is long, and the waiting is hard, harder than any single night of danger would be. It is easy to be brave for an hour. It is a different and a heavier thing to be brave every night for weeks on end, to lie down each evening not knowing if this is the night, to hold your eyes open against the soft weight of your own tiredness, while the one you love breathes slow and safe beside you. Some nights she is so tired that the dark swims in front of her, and the small sounds of the house blur into one another, and still she does not let herself sleep. She thinks of him leaping the wall for her. She thinks of the long road he walked to reach her window, and the walls he grew up behind, and the 3 deaths that followed him out of his own country, and she sets her jaw in the dark and keeps her watch, one more night, and then one more night after that. And then, on one of those nights, something comes. It comes the way such things come, without warning, in the deep middle of the dark when the house is fast asleep and the country is still. Out of a hole low in the wall of the room, a snake slides free, quiet as poured water, and pours itself down onto the floor and begins to move across it toward the bed where the man lies sleeping. It is the first of the 3 fates, come at last for its hour, sliding low and patient over the cool floor toward the one it was sent for. And the wife, lying awake in the dark with her eyes on the floor as she has lain every night for so long, sees it come. She does not cry out. She does not move. She holds herself perfectly still and she watches, because everything now depends on stillness, and she has set her trap and she must let it work. The snake slides on across the floor, and on its way to the bed it comes upon the bowls she set out, the beer and the sweet, sweet wine standing low and open and filling the dark with their smell. And it stops. It finds the sweetness first, exactly as she meant it to, before ever it reaches the sleeping man, and it lowers its head to the bowls, and it drinks. It drinks the sweet wine down in the dark, deep and long, the way a thirsty creature drinks, and the wife lies still as stone above it and watches it drink, and waits. She does not move a muscle. Her heart is going hard in her chest, but she keeps her body still as the dead, because she knows that everything now hangs on patience, on letting the sweetness do its slow work, on not startling the creature back into its quickness. So she lies there in the dark above it, and she waits, and she watches the long body bent low over the bowls, and she counts her own slow breaths, and she lets the wine and the beer pull the danger down into itself, the way still sweet water pulls a wasp down and holds it. And the wine does its slow, quiet work. The snake grows heavy with it. Its coils, which came in so smooth and quick and certain, begin to move slower and then slower still, thick and clumsy now, sated and dull. The lifted head sinks down. The long body loosens and folds in upon itself there on the floor beside the bowls, heavy and slow and warm with the sweetness, and its watching goes out of it, and it sleeps. It folds down into sleep on the cool floor, a bare arm's length from the man it was sent to kill, undone not by any wall or any weapon, but by a bowl of sweet wine and a waiting woman's patience, and it does not wake. And the wife, who has kept still through all of it, moves at last. Now, while the thing lies heavy and helpless in its stolen sleep, she is ready, and she does what must be done, quietly, in the dark, so that when the man wakes in the morning, the danger is already over and gone. He opens his eyes to the ordinary light of an ordinary morning in his own good house, rested and easy, knowing nothing, and his wife tells him, gently, what came in the night, and how it ended, and he understands, looking at her, all that she has been doing while he slept, all the long watch she has kept and never spoken of. One of the 3 deaths that were spoken over his cradle has come for him and found him, and been turned aside by a bowl of sweet wine and a woman who would not close her eyes, and passed him by. He reaches for her then, and holds her, this woman who chose him at a window and has guarded him in the dark ever since, and there are no words between them wide enough for what has passed in the night, so they do not try to find any. Outside, the birds are loud in the fig trees, and the light is climbing the walls of their own good house, and the fields are green, and the day is beginning the way every ordinary day begins, as though nothing at all had come creeping across the floor in the black middle of the night and been stopped a breath away from the bed. 2 of the 3 still wait somewhere out in the wide world. But the snake is finished, and the morning is bright, and the man is alive, and beside him is the one who kept him so. Not far from the good house they were given there lies a wide lake, still and pale, held in a low bowl of the green country like water held in a cupped hand. The young man comes to know it the way a man comes to know the land around a house he means to live in for the rest of his days. He walks out to it in the cool of the morning with the dog at his heel, and he stands on the soft edge of it where the reeds grow thick, and he looks out across the flat bright water to the far shore, and the lake looks back at him and gives away nothing at all. It is only a lake. It is a good place to stand in the early light. He does not know yet what waits for him in it. For the crocodile of his fate is in that water. The second of the 3 deaths that were spoken over his cradle lives out there under the still surface, patient in the way that only water things are patient, waiting for its hour to come round. It has been waiting a long time. It waited while he grew up behind his walls, and it waited while he walked the long road, and it waited while he leapt the wall and won his wife. And now that he has come to live beside its own lake, it goes on waiting still, because its hour is held back. and cannot arrive, and the holding back of it is a strange, quiet struggle that goes on beneath the flat, calm face of the water where no one on the shore can see it. There is a spirit in the lake, a power of the deep water, and it has closed with the crocodile and holds it fast. Down in the green dark under the surface, the two of them are locked together in a slow, endless wrestling that never finishes and never quite lets go. When the crocodile would rise, the water spirit drags it back down. When the crocodile would go still and gather itself, the water spirit stirs and troubles it again. Neither one can win, and neither one can leave, and so they turn together in the deep, hour after hour, day after day, and the fate that should have long since climbed the bank and come for the sleeping man is held instead in the cold grip of the lake, put off, and put off, and put off again. The surface tells none of this. The surface only lies there flat and shining, and lets the morning light walk across it. By day the young man walks the shore of that lake and knows nothing of the war being fought beneath it. He has made the water part of his good ordinary life. He goes down to it to watch the birds come in low over the reeds at dusk. He goes down to it to sit in the shade of the tamarisk on the bank with the dog stretched out beside him and the whole long green afternoon spread out ahead of him with nothing in it he must do. He has spent his whole boyhood shut away from open water. He was never allowed near a river, never allowed to stand at the edge of a moving thing and feel the pull of it, and now here is a wide, bright lake at the foot of his own land, and he loves it the way a man loves a thing he was once forbidden. He watches the wind lay long ripples across it, and he thinks it beautiful, and it is, and under all its beauty the thing that was made to kill him turns slowly in the deep. He comes to know the small daily life of the shore the way you come to know a face you see each morning. He learns where the reeds grow thickest and where the bank shelves down soft and muddy and where it stands firm enough to walk. He learns the birds by their calls before he learns them by their shapes, the long-legged waders that pick their careful way through the shallows at dawn, the small quick ones that dart low over the water and are gone. He learns the smell of the place, the green, weedy smell of still water and warm mud and crushed reed, and he learns the sound of it, which is almost no sound at all, only the faint stir of the wind in the tall stems, and now and then the small plosh of something rising to feed and sinking again. It is the most peaceful place he has ever known. It has become, without his choosing it, the quiet heart of his quiet, good days. The dog will not go into the water. This is the one small strangeness the young man notices, and he thinks little of it. When he walks to the edge, and the small waves come up to wet his feet, the dog hangs back on the dry bank with its ears low and will not follow, and stands there whining softly until he turns and comes back to the good ground. He thinks it is only that the dog does not care for the cold of it or the way the mud sucks at a foot. He does not know that the animal senses what he cannot, the great held danger under the flat surface, the cold patient thing waiting in the deep. So he laughs at the dog and rubs its ears and calls it a coward in a kind voice, and the dog leans against his leg, glad to have him back on the dry land, and the two of them walk home together in the last of the light with the lake going dark and quiet behind them. Night after night the lake stays calm. That is the whole of what happens, night after night after night. Nothing. The household sleeps. The good house holds its warmth. The wife keeps her own patient watch inside the walls against the dangers that creep along a floor. And out beyond the fields the wide lake lies black and still under the stars and does not stir. The crocodile does not climb the bank. The second death does not come. Its hour keeps being put off in the cold grip of the water, held down in the deep by the spirit that will not release it, and so the flat surface of the lake keeps its long silence, and the reeds stand still along the shore, and the man who is meant to die there sleeps easy and whole in his own bed, a field away, and never dreams of it. And because he is easy there, he lets his own life spread out along the shore in small, gentle ways. He learns to wade the shallows where the bottom is firm, feeling the cool of the water climb his legs, standing knee-deep among the reeds in the low light while the dog frets on the dry bank behind him. He never goes far. He never goes past the place where the bottom shelves away into the deeper green, though he could not have said why he stops there, only that something in him stops. He teaches himself the small crafts of a man who lives beside water, how to read the wind on the surface, how to know by the birds when the day is turning, how to sit so still in the tamarisk shade that the shy waders forget him and come picking their way close to his feet. He is a man growing slowly and happily into the shape of his own quiet life, and the lake is the still center of it, and the danger folded into its deep never once breaks the surface of his contentment. The seasons turn over the lake, and it does not change its silence. The water rises a little and falls a little with the turning of the year, and the reeds go green and then gold and then green again, and the birds come and the birds go with the changing of the air, and through all of it the deep of the lake keeps its long-held struggle hidden and gives no sign. A whole quiet life could be lived on that shore and never once brush against the danger in it. That is nearly what happens. The young man walks the same soft bank in the cool of 100 mornings and sits in the same tamarisk shade through the heat of 100 afternoons, and never once, in all that time, does the flat water so much as ripple with the thing that waits beneath it. And so the fate that lives in the water becomes, without his ever knowing it, the gentlest kind of danger there is, the kind that is always there and never arrives. It sits at the edge of his good life, the way the lake sits at the edge of his land, a wide, still presence he walks beside every day and never fears, because it never once shows its face. He grows easy with the water. He grows easy with the whole shape of his days. The wife watches the floors of the house by night, and the man walks the shore of the lake by day, and between the two of them, the waking woman and the held crocodile, the second of the 3 deaths is kept from him without his lifting a hand, and the long calm nights go by, and the flat water shines, and the hour that was set for him waits and does not come. Of the 3 deaths that were spoken over the young man's cradle, 2 are named for creatures of the wild, the snake that creeps and the crocodile that waits in the deep. But the 3rd is the one that has lain closest to him all his life. The 3rd death is the dog. It is the small 4-footed shape he saw from the roof as a boy and could not name, the one thing he begged his father for out of all the world, the warm companion he could not bear the high house without. It has walked at his heel through every country between the house of stone and this far green land. It slept curled against his back under the strange cold stars. It sat in the dust below the impossible wall and watched him leap. Of the 3 fates laid on him, the gentlest and the dearest and the nearest is the friend who has never once left his side. And the dog grows old at his side, the way a dog does, quietly and all at once. The muzzle goes grey. The long, easy stride shortens. It sleeps more and sleeps deeper and takes longer to rise when he calls it, and lies more and more in the warm patches of sun that move across the floor of the good house through the day. He watches it age with the tender, helpless watching of a man who loves an animal and knows he will outlive it, and he never once, in all his watching, sees in it the third of his 3 deaths. How could he? It is only the dog. It is the oldest friend he has in the world, the one warm thing that was with him behind the walls and on the road and under the wall and here in his own good house. And the thought that it could ever be his ending is a thought he does not have and could not hold. And the story leans now toward that last fate, the way a long night leans toward its final hour, slowly, without hurry, without fear. You can feel the telling begin to gather itself, the way a night gathers toward dawn. 2 of the 3 deaths have passed him by, the snake undone by sweet wine, and the crocodile held down in its cold lake, and only the 3rd is left, the oldest and the closest, and the tail carries the young man on toward it, the way the river carries a boat toward a bend you cannot yet see around. The man grows into the full strength of his years. Somewhere ahead, the last of the 3 hours is waiting, and the story moves toward it gently, and the listener, half asleep, moves with it. And then the words run out. Here, in the very middle of the telling, where the tale is leaning toward its close and the last fate waits just ahead, the old papyrus that carried the story down to us tears clean across, and the writing simply stops. There is no more. The line breaks off in the middle of the road, and past the break there is only the blank edge of the torn sheet where the rest of the words used to be. The scribe wrote on, "Surely." He must have carried the prince all the way to whatever end he had in mind. But the part of the roll that held that ending did not survive the long thousands of years between his hand and ours, and so the story we have is a story with its last hour missing, a night that stops just before its dawn. The tale is known to us now as The Doomed Prince, and every word of it that we have comes from a single surviving manuscript, one old roll of papyrus, and no other. It is called Papyrus Harris 500, and it is a New Kingdom copy, written out by hand in a time already ancient, and it is the only place in all the world where this story lived long enough to reach us. There is no second copy to fill the gap. There is no other roll in another tomb or another library that carries the missing end. When this one papyrus tore, the ending of the prince's night tore with it, and it has been gone ever since, and gone it remains. Think for a moment of the long road that one roll traveled to reach us at all. It was written by a hand that has been dust for longer than most of the world can imagine, in a country and a tongue already old when the roll was new. It lay somewhere in the dry ground, through the rise and fall of things beyond counting, kept whole by nothing but the kindness of the desert air, which takes so much, and now and then, by chance, keeps something. It was found at last and carried away and unrolled with great care, and the faded words were coaxed off the brittle sheet one by one and turned into a language the scribe never dreamed of, so that a listener, lying half asleep in a far-off age, could follow the prince to his window and his lake. That the story reached us at all is a small, quiet wonder. That it reached us broken is only the other side of the same wonder, the price the years asked for keeping the rest. There is something fitting, too, in where the tale chooses to break, though no one chose it. It stops not at a death, but at a life still being lived, in the middle of the good years, with the man safe in his house, and the danger still only a shape ahead. A story that ran on to its proper close would have had to spend that safety, to bring the third fate home and make the ending happen, whatever the ending was. Instead, the roll tears at the one place where nothing has yet gone wrong, and holds the young man there, in the last unbroken hour of his good fortune, forever. It is the kind of stopping place a tired mind reaches for on its own, the moment just before the turn, when everyone you love is still whole, and the hard thing has not yet come, and the night is only quiet and warm. So no one living knows how the story was meant to end. We do not know whether the scribe let the last fate take the young man at the last, the gentle dog turned somehow into the final death by some twist the torn page carried away with it. We do not know whether the prince slipped the third fate as he slipped the other two, and lived, and grew old in his good house by the still lake with his wife beside him. Learned people have argued it both ways for a long time, and they will argue it a long time yet, because there is nothing left to settle it, only the clean edge of the tear and the blank beyond it. The truth of the ending went into the ground with the missing piece of the roll, and the ground has kept its silence, and will go on keeping it. And perhaps it does not finally matter which way the lost end fell. A story is not only its last line. This one gave us a boy on a roof, and the whole ache of his wanting, a door opened at last, a road under strange stars, a leap that could not be made, and was made anyway, a woman who would rather starve than give him up, and would rather sit awake in the dark than let him be taken. All of that is whole. All of that survived. The tear took only the very end, the 1 hour the story never reached, and left us everything that came before it, which is nearly the whole of a life, and the best of it. Whatever the missing line said, it cannot unsay any of that, and none of it is lost. And there is a strange, soft mercy in that torn edge, if you let yourself feel it. Because the story stops before the last fate can arrive, the young man is never taken. The snake is beaten and the crocodile is held, and the third death is still only leaning toward him, still only a shape on the road ahead, when the words give out and the telling ends. He is left standing inside his own unfinished night, in the good house, by the calm water, with the wife who watches over him, and the old dog warm at his side, and the last hour that was coming for him is held off forever by nothing more than the simple fact that no one alive can read past the tear. The ending that would have closed on him was lost, and so it can never close on him at all. He is safe in the only way a person in a story can ever truly be safe, which is that his story has no end. And so we come to rest at the soft edge of what was never written, in the last quiet hour before the dawn. There is no more road ahead of us, and there is no need for any. The story has carried the young man from a lamp lit high in a lonely house on the edge of the sand, out along the long dark road under the wrong stars, up the face of an impossible wall, and home at last to a good house in a kind green country, and here, gently, in the middle of his own night, it lays him down and lets him rest. The tear in the old papyrus is not a wound now. It is a place to stop. It is the soft place at the end of the day where a story, like a listener, is finally allowed to close its eyes. Picture the house as it is in this last unwritten hour. It is dark and still and warm. The walls have given up the last of the day's heat and gone cool, and the whole low house holds its quiet the way a held breath is quiet. Out beyond the fields, the wide lake lies black and calm under the stars, and nothing troubles its surface, and the crocodile turns slowly in its deep and does not rise. In the room where the man sleeps, the danger of the floor is long past, and the bowls stand empty, and the small dangers of the world are all, for this one night, held far away. There is nothing loud left anywhere. there is nothing left to happen. The story has spent all its fear and come out the far side of it into stillness. Think of everything this quiet house has come through to earn its peace. The lonely years behind the stone walls, the boy on the roof watching a world he could not touch. The night the door was opened at last, and the long, hard road that ran out from it under the wrong stars. The tired traveller at the edge of the crowd, the impossible wall, the leap that no one believed until it was done. The angry chief and the daughter who would not eat, and the good house given over at last, and the snake turned back by sweet wine, and the lake that keeps its long silence. All of it has come down to this, to a warm, dark room in a kind country where the man who was fated to die 3 ways lies breathing slow and safe, with everyone he loves asleep around him, and nothing at all left to fear. And you can let your own thoughts go slow now, the way the house has gone slow. There is nowhere left in this story that you need to follow. The hard parts are all behind, the long road and the high wall and the snake on the floor and the fear kept awake through so many nights, and every one of them has come out safe on the far side. What is left is only the warmth, only the quiet, only the good house holding its people through the last of the dark. You do not have to hold anything anymore. You do not have to keep watch. The watching is done, and it was done well, and the man is safe, and the night has softened all the way down to nothing but rest. The wife keeps her patient watch, as she has kept it every night, but the watch is gentle now, more a habit of love than a stand against terror. She lies awake a while in the warm dark beside the man she chose, the man she took by the face at a high window and would have over every Lord's son alive, and she listens to him breathe, slow and deep and untroubled, and she is glad, in the plain, deep way of a person who has kept the one they love safe through the night. Her eyes grow heavy at last. The long fear has worn thin and soft, and there is nothing creeping across the floor, and nothing rising from the lake, and by even she lets herself begin to drift, there beside him, in the safe dark of their own good house. And the dog, the oldest friend, the gentlest of the 3 named deaths, lies warm against the door with its head on its paws. It has walked every road of his life beside him, and it lies now across the threshold of his home the way it has always lain nearest to him, keeping its own quiet watch, its breathing slow, its old body loose and easy in the warmth. Whatever it was ever meant to be to him, tonight it is only what it has always truly been, the warm shape at the door, the friend that does not leave, the last soft guard between the sleeping house and the wide, dark world outside. And it too, in the deep of the hour, sinks down into sleep, and the house sleeps, all of it, everyone in it, safe. And the house holds them all in its quiet the way a hand holds water, gently, without gripping. The thick walls that were built to keep the day's heat out now keep the night's peace in. The fig trees stand still beyond the door. The turned earth of the fields gives up its cool green smell into the dark, and the birds that came down into the branches at dusk are folded small and silent among the leaves, each one asleep with its head beneath its wing. Far off, the lake lies flat and black and does not stir. Nearer, the fields breathe out the last warmth of the day. And nearest of all, inside these good cool walls, 3 sleepers lie safe in the dark, the man and the woman and the old dog, each one at rest, each one whole, and the night holds its hand steady over the 3 of them and does not let a single thing spill. Because the ending was lost, the young man rests here forever. That is the gift the torn page gives him, the strange kindness of the missing line. He does not have to meet the last of his 3 deaths, because the words that would have brought it to him are gone, and so he stays where the writing left him, in the good house, by the still water, with the wife who loves him and the dog that guards his door, in the last calm hour of a night that has no morning after it, and needs none. He fought for his own life and won it, and now he's allowed to keep it, held safe inside the last line that survived, resting in the middle of his story where nothing loud can ever reach him again. Let your thoughts rest on that a while, softly, the way you rest a hand on something warm. A man was told at the very start of his life that it would end 3 ways, and he did not spend his years hiding from that word the way his father wished him to. He walked out to meet the world instead. He crossed strange country and slept on hard ground and wanted a bright window at the top of a wall he had no reason to believe he could reach, and he reached it, and a heart chose him, and a woman kept him safe through the dark, and a lake kept its silence, and in the end, the thing that was meant to close his story simply never got the chance, because the story ran gently out of words first. There are worse fates than to be lost. There are worse things than an ending no one can find. He is held now in the warm middle of his life, and the danger cannot reach him, and neither can anything else, and the house around him is quiet, and everyone in it is asleep. And outside the high window the sky begins, very slowly, to change. The black of the deep night thins at its lowest edge, and goes to grey, and the grey warms by the smallest degree toward the first pale promise of morning. The stars grow faint. A single bird, somewhere out in the fig trees, tries one soft note, and then falls quiet again, as though it too is not quite ready to wake. The night is ending the gentle way all nights end, without a sound, handing the world over to the light so slowly that no one need ever notice the moment it is done. And it hands you over with it, gently, out of the story and back toward your own morning, which is still a long way off, and which you do not need to hurry toward. The house is dark. The water is calm. The prince is safe in his unfinished night. And you may rest now, all the way he rests, and let the last of it go, and sleep,